Story 1. Having moved to a remote area of England recently, I was having trouble adjusting to the sleepy yet interesting town next to Blackthorn Lane. Weary of the monotony of housework, I made the decision to venture out into this new area one evening. I had no idea that I was going to come upon a terrifying place that lived on the foreboding road of Blackthorn Lane. An eerie experience that would follow me around for the rest of my life. My only goal when I stepped outside my house, got in my car, and drove away was to find some comfort. The moon, perched high in the midnight sky, cast an eerie glow over Blackthorn's gloomy terrain. I was an adventurous soul, and the quiet of that road that night was comforting. I was surrounded by a strange quiet as I made my way down Blackthorn Lane's twisting turns, broken only by ghostly whispering in the darkness. Sarah, Sarah, was a constant murmur that came from somewhere on either side of the street. A thick mist drifted in, enveloping the road in a ghostly haze while I struggled to make sense of these unsettling murmurs. My grip tightened on the driving wheel as my heart raced in my chest. The air around me thickened, making it difficult for me to breathe while I struggled to see through the thick fog. I caught sight of the enigmatic and foreboding trees by the road from the corner of my eye. Unsettling murmurs swirled through the air, their uncanny melodies resonating in my ears as shadowy creatures appeared to walk between the gaps in the trees. Even though my logical mind wrote these events off as the product of my imagination, as I went down Blackthorn Lane, I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was watching over me. My name was chanted more and more ominously, Sarah, Sarah. My sanity started to fade. Then I noticed a figure in the center of the road, standing for unknown reasons. Seen only by my headlights, it flashed in and out of existence behind the fog. When I looked more closely, I could make out the silhouette of a woman with dejected expressions on her face. My heart became cold, and I didn't know how to respond. Abruptly, the ghost stretched out to my approaching car, as though it was looking for solace or a way to speak with me. My pulse pounded with both interest and fear, forcing me to pull over and venture out into the misted night. Trembling, I moved closer to the enigmatic figure. I said in a tremulous voice, "Who are you?" Everything around me was silent, as though it was waiting for the phantom woman to say something. But she kept her head down, her hair covering her face so that just a half-visible eerie sneer could be seen. As I knelt to gaze upon her face, the spectral woman abruptly lifted her eyes. From all directions came a cacophony of quiet voices that echoed whispers of my name. Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. My sanity gave way to pure panic as this chorus of unsettling and alien calls enveloped me. The woman in front of me started laughing eerily, like she was making fun of my very existence. My cries cut through the darkness as I frantically ran to my car in an attempt to get away from the eerie presence that had been consuming me all evening. I tried to find my way home and put an end to this spooky encounter episode by driving erratically through the heavy fog and the unsettling chants of my own name. The spectral woman would eerily materialize by the side of the road every 5 minutes, and her eerie, loud laugh would chill me to the bone. Lost and disoriented, I was on that dangerous road in a never-ending cycle of horror. As darkness enveloped my awareness and the sun began to peek over the horizon, time became meaningless. I sought for assistance when I noticed a stranger walking by at that moment. He saw that I was about to pass out and offered to help. He quickly grabbed the wheel and drove me to the safety of a hospital. My horrifying incident on Blackthorn Lane came to an end at this point, and I will never forget it. Story 2. After going to the movies, it was just another typical night, complete with jokes and laughs. We were talking about the terrible ending of the movie we had just seen when I accidentally drove the car onto the notorious Flatwoods Road. We didn't usually take this way home, and I discovered my error too late. I was the only one in the car with the other two who had heard the scary stories about this road. Stories about the Flatwoods Monster, a nefarious admitted to the terrible past of the route. Emily and Jake were so terrified by this news that they stayed glued to their seats as our vehicle continued into the thick woodland. Inside the car, things were getting tight. Emily reported seeing strange shapes on the road ahead, formed by swirling shadows under the headlights. Despite his obvious fear, Jake waved these off as nothing more than tricks of the mind. The car was suddenly shaken by a chilly burst of wind, and the engine sputtered menacingly. Despite our racing hearts, we made the decision to remain composed and make it home without incident. Emily pointed out the windshield as we got out of the car to check the engine, her face blanched with fright. Her pointing finger told all the words she was too scared to say. The Flatwoods monster loomed large in the shadows, his eyes a blazing red and his arms extended. Our spines tingled at the sight of the thing, and we clambered back inside the vehicle. I turned the ignition key feverishly, and the engine fired right back up with a roar. I skidded the automobile just enough to keep it from colliding with the animal. The creature chased after us with no mercy, its monstrous screams resonating in our ears like a death symphony. We became incredibly anxious upon realizing that we were ensnared in this terrifying pursuit. The automobile engine died once more, right when we thought we had lost the beast. Emily and I stayed inside, keeping a close eye on the thing while Jackie went outside to fix the engine. Emily cried out, "It's here again, Alex," with a start. I turned to see the Flatwoods monster speeding toward us. I attempted to warn Jake, but the sound of the engine drowned me out. I was able to restart the car as the beast approached. Ignoring the threat, Jake turned back and shut the hood, only to see the beast towering above him. Ignoring my furious honking, he froze in fright. Jake was suddenly assaulted by an invisible force that pulled him into the heart of the jungle. Alone in the car with our hearts thumping with fear was Emily and me. We took the route that Jake had been forced to go, but we quickly lost him. His cries seemed to reverberate throughout the jungle for like forever before vanishing into a spooky quiet. We were left alone in the automobile when the monster disappeared into the jungle. We promised to stay alive through the night and managed to make it back to the road. We managed to return home, but Jake vanished from view. We're still haunted by that night, and the Flatwoods Road serves as a terrifying reminder of the paranormal evils that wait in the shadows. Story 3. My girlfriend Sarah and I had been having fights for around a month. She thought I wasn't spending enough time with her and felt abandoned. After working overtime one Saturday night, I made the decision to make up for our recent arguments. I said, "Hey Sarah, let's go," suggesting an unplanned road trip. She was surprised, but she immediately packed a bag of food, and we drove at night down some unknown highway. We laughed together, had animated discussions, and drove for hours. The radio playing music and the gentle hum of the car motor were the only sounds coming from the lonely road. Sarah opted to take a nap when she started to feel tired halfway through our excursion. I parked the automobile at a rest area. I stretched my legs and then went inside to the bathroom. When I got back, Sarah was clearly frightened and shook. Seeking to console her, I held her close and inquired as to what had transpired. "Honey, when I went, you were asleep. What frightened you?" I reassured her that we would continue our drive and that everything would be okay because she was too terrified to express her anxiety. I could see the road getting darker as we started traveling again. The sky was cloudy and the trees around us became denser. The howls of wolves and the distant barking of dogs heightened the spooky atmosphere. Sarah started to shake once more, showing her concern that someone was watching us from behind the woods. She was certain that there were eyes hidden behind the trees. I attempted to persuade her that she was merely being overly cautious, but I was unable to get past my own discomfort. After a few more hours of traveling, the forests began to look more foreboding. Sarah begged me to turn around because she was scared, but I was determined to follow the path to see where it would take use. We could no longer see the ski because the woods had grown so thick. The road was silent, the only sound coming from the car's humming motor in the dead of night. This is when odd things started to happen. The headlights of the automobile flickered, creating unsettling shadows on the dense woods bordering the road. We were both overcome with dread, and our gut told us there was danger ahead. Though Sarah was nervous, I thought her worries were unfounded. The headlights on the automobile suddenly went out, leaving us in total darkness. I put the brakes on hard as Sarah let out a scream. After the automobile stopped, we sat quietly, only aware of our own breathing and the sporadic rustle of the trees. A strange sound kept resonating through the darkness, so I decided to explore and got out of the car, leaving Sarah in complete terror. With my cell phone torch in hand, I gingerly made my way into the forest, Sarah keeping a close eye on me. My eyes snapped to the terrifying image of a man stepping out of the darkness. The man had an odd appearance. He was tall and ominous, and his face was covered with eerie freckles. His eyes shot through the shadows, glowing a menacing red. I started screaming, shivers running down my spine from his presence. When Sarah heard me yell, she freaked out. She scrambled for the car keys, wanting to get away from this nightmare before it got any worse. I reappeared on the road, sprinting towards the automobile, my face full of fear as the person got dangerously close. With quivering voice from dread, I yelled at Sarah to get in the car. Sarah started the car with a rush of adrenaline, and we drove away from the evil force, tires squealing on the pavement. However, the night's horrors were far from ended. The road wound around and around indefinitely. Through the car's rearview mirror, I was able to glimpse the unusual man. We came into a number of evil things that harassed and mocked us along the route. Sarah was crying now, and I was at a loss for words. Even so, I continued to drive till we arrived at our house. That night is a clear reminder of our relationship and how important it is to value one another. However, we shall never forget the horrors of that evening.